Hello and welcome another edition Coach's Corner, and really excited, one of my all-time favorites. And if you are a college baseball fan and you happen to watch the Tallahassee Regional this year, you might have noticed a team that was on the cusp of mega upset category, Bethune-Cookman, and one of my favorite college coaches in the country, Johnny Hernandez, the head coach at Bethune-Cookman. Johnny, thank you so much for taking the time to join me today. Really excited to talk with you.
Thank you, Walter. Appreciate it. Every time that I get a chance to speak about our program and kind of what we're doing here at Bethune, it's always great. And again, man, thank you for having me on the show once again.
I get a lot of parents that want to know more about the SWAC. And, I try to give parents an understanding that all of college baseball at the Division I level is going to see a lot of talent, coming off of maybe rosters that were overinflated. Talk a little bit about your time at Bethune-Cookman. One, you're in a great part of the country, a baseball mecca, but more importantly, you've built a national ranked caliber program. Talk a little bit about how you feel about your program today as well as moving forward.
Feel good about our program. As you alluded to, we had a really good showing at the Tallahassee Regional after winning the conference championship on a walk-off home run against Florida A&M. Our school is located in Daytona Beach, Florida. So, can't beat the weather. Our stadium sits on an island in Daytona Beach, Jackie Robinson Ballpark, and we're actually going through a $40 million facility renovation project that the Cincinnati Reds and the city of Daytona Beach have come together collectively to be able to have those renovations as part of the new player development facilities that's required by Major League Baseball. And, we're just so fortunate to have a really good relationship with the Cincinnati Reds and with the city of Daytona Beach, where, our program is going to be able to utilize those resources with the renovations projects that, should be completed by opening day 2026. I've been here for about 7 years now, and every year it's just been a stepping stone. And as we know, the pandemic affected everyone, and in 2021 we opted out. So, it was back to the drawing board, in that summer, and just trying to see where we were going to take this program. As everyone in our 2021 roster, we decided to let them go and venture out to different parts of the country and to be able to play and get their degrees. But fast forward, it's been a really good process, a tough one. But like we say, man, we're right at the cusp of where we want this program to be. We've had the last 3 years consecutive 30 plus wins. This past season, we won 37 games, and that's the most wins since 2002, where Coach Melendez and the Wildcats at that point in 2002 set the school record of 39 wins. And again, we're just building it day by day, and this isn't done without the support of our administration, with the assistant coaches that work alongside with myself, and the student athletes that we're able to recruit and develop throughout the course of the year. And again, just looking forward to some great things with our program. And we just added another building block this past year, getting to the Tallahassee Regional and being competitive in those two games against Florida State and Northeastern.
So I want to I don't want to go back and feel the pain, but how do your student athletes that are returning, do they use that as kind of ammo in the brain? Like, man, we were this close and now we want to take it to that next level. Not only your returning, student athletes, but your recruits, everybody now. Bethune-Cookman isn't somebody on the outside looking in. You're on the inside now and everybody's looking at you. What type of athletes now are you beginning to attract on a nationwide basis, not just in Southern Florida, for your program?
Yeah, I think it's definitely, widen out, the ability to reach student athletes because of the success that we've had, not only this year, but the last couple of years. And, some big time midweek wins, over University of Miami, Florida International, Stetson, JU, and USF. I mean, I think now what I want is for Bethune-Cookman to be a household name. Not only in the SWAC conference, but on a regional level in the state of Florida, which baseball in Division I in Florida and junior college and D2 and NAIA is really good and competitive, but on a national level as well. And I think that we did that with this past year. So it's allowed for us to be able to attract recruits that I think maybe in past years wouldn't give Bethune-Cookman, an opportunity, or even look into what we have been able to accomplish in, the last couple of years. And again, this is a program that has won 20 conference championships, has had 19, 20 trips to the NCAA regionals. And, a lot of people won't know that because we don't get the exposure of the Power Four programs and the exposure of the top end mid-major programs. But, for us, our guys have a chip on their shoulder. They understand that, we were that close from being able to win a game in the regional, and we were competitive. And now it's for us to be able to take that next step forward to not only win one game in a regional, but compete for a regional championship and head to the super regionals.
So, Johnny, I have to ask you, in today's world, a lot of parents, high school athletes in particular, seem somewhat frustrated. So, with regard to recruiting now, what role does the high school player play for you with regard to your recruiting, not only today, but moving forward while building your program?
I think the first thing is the high school student athlete needs to realize that there is a school, for everybody. I
Right.
think that it's got to fit academically, it's got to fit athletically, and it's got to fit financially as well. I think that high school student athletes today should be open to any and all routes of college baseball. They shouldn't get stuck in, I have to go D1, I have to go D1. No, there's very good Division II programs, there's very good NAIA programs, and there's really good junior college baseball programs that are able to develop and get guys to the next phase of their career. I think that they have to keep going at it. I think now we get stuck in the era of we have to play tournaments every single weekend, and the physicality and the development part of the student athlete gets lost because we're so concentrated in playing every weekend, every weekend, every weekend. And I think that sometimes the student athlete, especially the high school one, needs to take a step back and look at the Division I rosters, look at the Division II rosters, look at the Division III rosters, NAIA junior college, and go out and see the physicality of our game right now. And that's a huge part, I think, that's missing in the high school student athletes. So I think that their role is they have to academically, keep doing what they're doing, email coaches, send videos, and understand that the landscape has changed with not only the transfer portal, but now with the roster restrictions cut down to 34. Speaking on our program, our roster spots are limited, and we don't have, like, we can't bring in 10 to 12, 15 high school student athletes like we did in the past. That's just not going on right now with all the rules that have in place. So I think for them is just stay at it, and literally I would urge every high school student athlete in their area to try and catch a Division I game, Division II game, D3 baseball game, NAIA junior college game, and sit through those games and actually self-evaluate themselves to see if they are able to play at that level, and look at the physicality of those current college baseball program rosters and see, okay, this is what I need to do to get better, and put themselves in a position to be successful.
I want to encourage parents, with regard to not only Bethune-Cookman, but the SWAC as a conference. I want to encourage you, make sure you're opening up your Baseball Blue Book app. If you haven't already created a profile, make sure you create a profile, not only to find out about Coach Hernandez and Bethune-Cookman, but you want to find out about the schedule that they play, the camps that they may be having. So make sure you download the Blue Book app. And Johnny, I want to talk a little bit about SWAC baseball. I talked to Dave and Pierre at Grambling and a couple of alumni there. They feel like they have kind of been regulated and nobody's talking SWAC. But I can tell you, I watched a lot of games this year. I watched your game, your walk-off game, the home run that went viral against Florida A&M. But, for years past, when Merville was at Alabama State, whether it may be Southern, Grambling, talk a little bit about the competitive nature of not only your conference, but you mentioned outside conference games, Miami. You're talking about some big boy in conference and out of conference. So talk a little bit about your schedule and the quality of baseball within the SWAC.
So our schedule, for us, right? Like, we're fortunate to be in Florida, where our schedule is very regionalized, and we're able to get, to some of these places in the state of Florida within 2 or 3 hours. So, very fortunate that. And the other thing is, I'm happy too, and fortunate that the head coaches, right, and the people that take care of the scheduling for these big time programs allow for us, to be able to play them, whether it be a midweek or whether it be a weekend series. we have to put our players in the best position possible to succeed. And we're not going to shy away from competition. We have to play those games because, as we saw this year, we have an opportunity to win a SWAC championship. We know we're going to go to one of three regional sites, and that's going to be University of Miami, Florida, or Florida State, as we were this past year. So, for us as a coaching staff, is be able to put our student athletes in that position as many times as we can. So when we get to that point in the season, at a regional, then we're going to be able to have a good showing like we did. So that's something that our program has always done historically. It's not anything new. And again, we play anybody that we feel is going to give us the best opportunity to prepare ourselves for the end of the season. A couple of years ago, we played at LSU. We played at South Carolina for a weekend series. So again, just very fortunate where we're at and with the support of administration to put our student athletes in that position. As far as the SWAC goes, the SWAC is a very competitive baseball conference. We've been a member of the SWAC now going on 3-4 years, and every year the talent gets better. The recruiting gets better, the development of the student athletes get better, and that's attributed to all the head coaches, in our conference, and the assistant coaches that work alongside the head coaches to be able to build up, the Southwestern Athletic Conference on a national brand. We don't get the exposure of the Power Four programs and also the top end mid-major programs, and I think that is what is unique about all of our programs, because when we do get opportunities to play against some big time programs, all of our student athletes in our conference and all the head coaches, it's about getting a good showing and allowing people to understand that there is really good baseball here in the Southwestern Athletic Conference, excuse me. And I've said it publicly, if people would give HBCU baseball an opportunity, they would be able to open their eyes and say, wow, like this is a very competitive, program or conference. We've had players get drafted out of the Southwestern Athletic Conference. We've had players sign free agent deals with major league organizations. Currently, the Swingman Classic is going on tonight on Friday in Atlanta, Georgia, and there's going to be the top 50, 60 HBCU baseball prospects that are going to have an opportunity to play on MLB Network. So again, I'm just so happy with how the conference, all of us are kind of heading towards the right direction and be able to, assist the Southwestern Athletic Conference to be able to build a national brand within the sport of baseball.
So you had mentioned that your administration is now, you're open to different parts of the country. And I would love for you to discuss from your perspective, the staff at Bethune-Cookman, when you are out looking at players, what are some of the criteria that you begin to look at over and above size, physicality? Just kind of give parents an idea or athletes an idea. Here's what you really need to be focused in on. When you get off the bus and you're in the dugout, we're looking for what? What is it that you're looking for athletes that fit your program?
Yeah, well, first of all, we have to be able to find and identify student athletes that can play at this level, right?
Right.
Every time we go watch a player, is okay, how is he going to help us, not only acquire, right, or win some conference games on the weekends, but if we do get to regional, how do they match up with some of the Power Four mid-major programs that we're going to see? I think being a great teammate, is first and foremost what we look for. There's times where guys are really good teammates when they're 4 for 4, but for us, it's when they're 0 for 3, right? With 3 strikeouts, or just they hit 3 balls, hard, and it gets caught by the defense. Again, like how is that student athlete going to be towards their teammates? Are they slamming stuff on the ground, right? Because for us, we have to be able to find student athletes that are going to represent our institution well on and off the field. How they interact with umpires, that's huge too, right? We go places where, we have to be able to trust our student athletes in the heat of the moment to kind of keep their cool, right? Calm, cool, collective. Those are things that, we look for. Even their appearance, how they get off, from the bus, or how they get off from the car at a tournament. We're always looking, is a guy wearing sandals? Is his shirt tucked out? Is the hat backwards? There's a professionalism aspect to it where, if I go to a job interview for a job, I have to wear a suit and tie. All the high school student athletes and the recruitable student athletes, their uniform is essentially their suit and tie, so to speak. Playing the game hard, are they running everything out hard? Are they being a great teammate? Are they backing up the bases? Do they bring energy? And energy for us is not the rah rah cheerleading, stuff. Energy for us is playing the game the right way, playing hard, just being, what we call old school, right? A dirtbag, being able to do those things. So again, it's just hard nosed guys. And, we want guys that have faced some type of adversity in their lives. Sometimes it's not about the best players, about the right fit, because if you've gone through some adversity in your life and you've been able to overcome it, then baseball is just a game. So, it's a unique student athlete that we have to be able to bring in. We don't have all of the resources that the top end schools have, but that's not an excuse for us. We don't worry about, what we don't have. We worry about what we do have. So just the interaction with the coaches, interaction with their fellow teammates, interaction with their opponents, interaction with umpires. I've getting calls, sometimes where, I know a student athlete has played against a certain opponent and I know the opponent's head coach and I just called him, hey man, how was this guy when you guys played him? Well, Johnny, he was a good dude, very respectful, played the game the right way, ran everything out. And I've got calls where, hey, Johnny, stay away. This dude was barking. It's just so many things that go into it outside of just the athletic ability that we pretty much put our stock into when we recruit a student athlete at Bethune-Cookman.
Talk a little bit about during your tenure, with Bethune-Cookman. I really want you to talk a little bit about the really reemergence now. Now we have the 34-man rosters. Athletes have to be patient with their process. Can you talk a little bit about, hey man, you might be a freshman or a sophomore, but you got to kind of trust the process, be patient. Your time is going to come. Now, guys want to blow out of Dodge if they don't get any at bats as a freshman or a sophomore, and it really hurts their development as an individual. Can you talk a little bit about the need for younger athletes to have patience and have a process for themselves as a student athlete?
Yeah, it's all in the process. You got to wait your turn, right? You can't run before you learn how to walk, and you can't walk until you learn how to crawl. That's we're very open with all of our student athletes, especially the young guys, that we recruit, and we lay it out for them, before they even step foot on campus, right? There is a process, and they have to stick with it. And I think that we live in the instant gratification era where
Man.
one of my teammates committed to so and so school. How come I'm not committed yet? Well, I think that the high school student athlete and the parents need to understand that they have power in their recruiting process. And with technology of how advanced it is, they're able to see if so and so is a catcher and I want to go to this school. Well, on the roster there's 3 catchers, there's 2 sophomores and a freshman. Chances are that program's not recruiting a catcher. But as far as like within our program, we're very open with our guys and we let them know about the process of development. This isn't, you know uh, where you're going to come in and play right away. Obviously, if you have the ability and you show that you can, great. But if not, we have examples of past alumni that have gone through our program and has stuck with the process and have been able to have a really good career even if they don't start right away as a freshman. And I think that gets lost in today's world where, a high school freshman doesn't start on varsity as a ninth grader, then they transfer to another school, right? And for us, when I was coming up, we were freshman and sophomore on high school JV, unless you
Right.
did something really, really exceptional to be able to be placed on the varsity roster. And even that, your time was limited on the varsity roster. We weren't getting to varsity baseball until your junior year. Some programs in South Florida, you're a junior still in JV. And it's not that
Right.
you're not, that good. It's just you have to just wait your turn because you have a really good player ahead of you. So and it's in life, you be patient. Good things come to those who are patient. And I know it's cliche, but it really is, so I think that there is an open communication, at least with our guys, with the young guys that we do bring in, and we surround them with veterans to be able to assist them in their development as well.
Last question for me, and I really want to have parents get a good understanding of the value of camps, particularly at Bethune-Cookman, with regard to they're not necessarily recruiting events, but it's a way for you to get to meet student athletes, for athletes to get to know you and your staff. And how would you advise athletes how to treat the camps? In other words, I always try to get parents to understand when you're going to Bethune-Cookman camp, see the campus, see the dorms, see the, see the interaction with regard to the student body. There's more to college camps than just fielding ground balls and taking BP. Talk a little bit about how you value your camps with regard to your recruiting process.
We value it. We've gotten players, from our camps that are on our current roster and have been on our rosters. I think that for me, I view the camp as a job interview, right? For potential student athletes and even for us, as a coaching staff, right? I would urge, student athletes that are interested in camps again to be able to make sure academically, it's a fit. That's number one, right? If you want to go into mechanical engineering, well, Bethune-Cookman doesn't offer that, then you shouldn't waste your money on going to a Bethune-Cookman camp because we don't offer that academic subject that one wants to pursue. I think athletically, it has to be a fit. Like we mentioned earlier, if you're a catcher and we have 3 catchers on our roster, chances are we're not recruiting a catcher for your class, right? And I see it as a job interview. Not only the way that we as a coaching staff are able to interact with the student athlete, I think the student athlete also has a responsibility to be able to come up and allow themselves to come up to the coaching staff and introduce themselves and speak to them and get to see how the coaching staff interacts not only with them but with everybody else in the camp setting. And I urge kids that come to our camps to drive around campus, to be able to take in Daytona Beach, enjoy it for a couple of days. You might as well. You made the trip. You're coming to the camp, but there's a lot more than just hey, I'm going to take a couple of ground balls and maybe play a 6 inning game, get a couple of at bats, some BP. I think that there's the personal connection is what needs to had in the as far as like camps is concerned. So I see it as a job interview, not only for the student athlete but for us as a coaching staff as well, because if we do recruit that student athlete, we want to make sure that they feel comfortable in our setting and conversations, ask questions and ask hard questions. Where do
Right.
you see, we deal with it all the time. And that's where I think that the student athlete and the parent needs to understand that they do have power within their recruiting process.
Well, I want parents to understand Johnny Hernandez is a uh, elite life mentor and a heck of a baseball coach on top of that. So I strongly encourage, first of all, for parents that are unaware of the Southwestern Athletic Conference, Bethune-Cookman in particular, it's a top 30 program in the country. They're playing quality baseball from February into June. And now we're getting into late June. And it's a program that now more than ever, with regard to the balance of power, I guess, for lack of a better term, all schools, all levels really deserve your respect as a parent, as a student athlete. And I definitely encourage you to take a good, strong look into Bethune-Cookman. And Johnny, thank you so much for taking the time to join me. I know it's a busy time of year, but I greatly appreciate your time.
You got it. Thank you. Anytime that you want me on the show back, and I'm here for you guys, and it's about pumping information to the student athlete and the parents any way that we can help out. I'm here for that.
Well, I appreciate that. And I know parents really get excited. I know the last time you were on, I had a lot of parents reach out to me. So I'm going to encourage parents in the description, all of Coach Hernandez's contact information, social media, but you can also find that again on the Baseball Blue Book. Download the app, make sure you create a profile so someone like Coach Hernandez and his staff at Bethune-Cookman can find you. Johnny, thank you again, Captain.
You got it. Hail Wildcats.